Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me again. I appreciate you being with me, and let's get started on the blog. The name of the blog this week is called A Spiritual Oasis of Light. And this is going to be a tough topic to discuss because even though I've experienced the situation more than a few times, I actually really had no idea how I ended up there. And I'm really not entirely sure how I found the oasis that I was seeking and eventually found my way out. Yet I do know that even the most devout and pious among us find ourselves there at times. And it feels shocking, really, to have spent so many years with our feet firmly planted on our spiritual path and then to find ourselves completely lost and weeping as we look around and we really see nothing familiar and find so little spiritual comfort and hope. We tend to sort of feel like an imposter who's only pretending to be forging forward on our spiritual evolutionary path, while at the same time assisting others to and helping others to leave the barren wasteland of spiritual uncertainty so that they can find their own beautiful garden path that leads to truth. And I can tell you, it is a sad and a sorrowful time in that desolate and isolating space. Often we collapse, wrap our arms around our curled and weary legs, our head buried in our arms and crying desolate tears. We tremble, shrieking emotional, heartfelt pleas for help and assistance to finding our way out of that dry, infertile spiritual land. We try to meditate and we pray fervently, yet there we still wander, worn out, parched, and still seeking the divine sanctuary that will renew us, refresh us, renew our strength, and bring us back home to our true selves. Even Jesus found himself feeling abandoned and alone as he faced the horror he knew was about to befall him, which of course is his crucifixion. So it can happen, and probably will happen to many of us. But there's always a light in the distance that will bring us back home to our soul. And when this first happened to me many years ago, I was completely flummoxed, confused. I had all my memories of transcendent awakenings and spiritual doorways that opened wide before me and led me to spiritual peace I could never have imagined. There was not an ounce of doubt, hesitation, or skepticism. I found the portal to my inner sanctuary, and it was there that my faith truly came alive for me. I didn't simply proclaim my faith in God's infinite light and immortal truth. I began living it. It was a heavenly and miraculous, life-giving presence that coursed through every cell of my body and every inch of my immortal soul. I felt as if nothing could ever lock that door to that celestial space. I had the ethereal key tucked away inside of me, and I believed it was mine forever. So what happened? Well, what happened was I remembered the sobering truth that I'm not only a divine immortal soul, but I am also a mortal human being. I was susceptible to the negativity, the violence, divisiveness, and hatred that churned and pummeled this world, the earth, like violent hurricanes and destructive tornadoes. It tore up people's lives, their homes, their faith in God, and their trust in each other. We forgot that we're all connected to each other and began to fear our differences, which led to more and more divisiveness, wars, and destruction. Now, when we first unlock our blessed inner sanctuary, we also unlock every tiny emotional space within our open and vulnerable hearts. Our soul that is love becomes a beacon of light that leads our lives. However, along with such loving openness, also comes a tendency for us to become deeply wounded and to bleed profusely from our broken hearts that long only for love, but instead find mostly fear and hate. The more focused on the harshness of the world, the more my hope and belief in humanity's ability to remember who we are, all of us, and heal from our misguided ways, that dwindled and waned. I began to believe that perhaps hate was in fact more powerful than love. That loss of faith in love's power is what led me to that barren desert of despair and hopelessness. Now, thankfully, it didn't last long. Somewhere in the midst of my despondency were those distant, echoing reverberations of deep inner voices of a million souls reminding me of the power of unifying love. Those voices grew ever louder as my faith and hope began to return and grow stronger. The light workers, both on earth and in spirit, all together led me to a cool, comforting respite, an oasis where my spirit was renewed and my soul's power soared back to 100%. I was back. The desert was finally behind me, and in front of me was a lush garden filled with the heavenly refreshments that I needed to stay strong in spirit and soulfully directed. I reunited with my legion of lightworkers, and we continued on our mission to move our wounded world away from destructive and divisive fear and back to unifying and transformational love. So you might think, well, that was the end of my tendency to be led off my soul's path of pursuing God's infinite light, divine love, and absolute truth. After all, I believed the gate to the desert of spiritual emptiness was locked forever, and I'd never be tempted to go back there again, right? Nope, wrong. It doesn't happen often because I've learned not to be pulled into the harshness and tragedy that happens every single day in our country, America, and all over the world. If I start watching the news too much, a darkness washes over me and my heart feels as if it's physically being torn apart. My inability to make a significant difference and right the wrongs here in the physical world brings back that feeling of hopelessness once again. And if I'm not careful, I can get pulled back into that barren desert of despair. Unfortunately, this past week had that effect on me. Another mass shooting in Ross Elementary School in Texas was an unfathomable, gut-wrenching tragedy that was an evil darkness that was just too much for my eternal soul and my human heart to bear. Maybe the fact that I'm still recovering from a pretty serious surgery left me more vulnerable, and one of the reasons I was unable to stand strong and unwavering in my energetic power. I'm not really sure. The news of what happened hit me with a ferocity like I've never felt. Each innocent child so viciously and callously murdered felt like they were my own child, violently torn away from me. leaving a gaping, bloody hole in what felt like my mortally wounded heart. I sat on the couch, clutching my gut, my head buried deep in a barren emptiness of my chest. And it was torturous. My husband was startled and he asked what was wrong, and I sobbed in inaudible words and guttered cries of grief and pain. It felt as if my own precious children, George Adam, Brittany, and Alyssa, had been suddenly ripped away from me, torn from my womb. That safe sanctuary within me that, though physically empty for many years, now still held the footprints of light and life I carried for those 9 beautiful months. In that moment, they were gone, stripped away from me through the grief of those devastated mothers and fathers that I didn't know at all, and at the same time, I knew them intimately. I was them, and they were me. And I entered the world, their world of torment and agony that I knew would never truly end for them. The desert was visible to me, before me, and I had a choice to enter or not. I was angry. I was furious that this had happened yet again in our country, a country I love and I believe in despite so many reasons not to. No. I would not succumb to the darkness, I decided. I was stronger than the darkness. My love was stronger and brighter than the blackest of nights. I turned back toward the garden of light and received even more strength from love's power. I had no idea how I could help convince our people, our America, that it is not these individuals alone committing these atrocities who were mentally ill. It is us as a country, as a people, our beloved America, founded on an ideal and a belief that all people are equal. We have professed to all have our fundamental civil rights. We were born with freedoms, most of which was and is our freedom to live. These mass murders are being committed mostly by our children, whom we created, raised, and influenced. Perhaps they are mentally ill. Yet, if we really think about it, so are we. Our country, the United States of America, the home of the free and the land of the brave, that once put God at the head of our great land, has become corrupted to a point where we have become mentally unwell. Somehow we are giving birth to and raising murderers, most of them barely adults themselves. We lost sight of the unity of the world, of the people from all over the world that worked together and made America the great country it became. We need to take responsibility for what we've done and make things right in every possible way. We must protect our innocent school-age children from us, a broken country. We must also protect them from our lost, deranged young men and women who care so little for the precious gift of life that they would so callously steal it from our helpless babies and then from themselves. There is hope, however, because there's always hope. We can remember who we infinitely are. In the garden of light, along with the many light worker souls like you and like me, we will stand together. We can and will do the best to awaken our country of fearful human ostriches with their heads buried in the sand. as a collective dazzling light of love, truth, and divine power, we can awaken those who have turned their back on us and force them to see the will of the people powered by the will of our Creator and by love. We are immortal, infinite souls made of love and capable of creating miracles, and we will. The very soul of our country and the world is at stake, and failure is not an option. We will succeed. So let us never, never, never lose sight of the garden of God's love and unity, because love truly, truly is far more powerful than fear and hate. So God, please bless and comfort the bereaved and grieving mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, and friends. And please, God bless America and the world. I'm going to leave it at that. I know it was strong, but it's passionate from my heart, which is filled with love for all of you. And I know together we can make a difference. We really, truly can. We just have to hold on to hope and be love. So I hope you have a great week ahead. And thank you again for sharing this time with me. Namaste.